What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, things just exploded online with Nintendo trending all over the place because there was an apparent leak that happened showcasing what Nintendo's next system and concept is, and I guess we'll focus in on that one here today because I got a bit of a laugh out of it. And oh yeah, we'll also talk about why some people are expecting a Nintendo Direct this week. Also, we are going to be talking about Starfield as a bunch of details have been leaking out there that even got to a point where someone got arrested from it. And we also have to take a look at Armored Core 6. It released last week, and it turns out when it comes to sales, yeah, this game's not messing around. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Immortals of Aveum, which is built on Unreal Engine 5.1. And I've been playing through this game, about halfway done on the Xbox Series X at this time. And something I've noticed immediately is that the game looks very soft when you're playing it, as in the image quality is pretty blurry at times. And well, Digital Foundry did their own analysis on it, and it kind of makes sense considering they found the resolution that it starts at 1280 by 720, and the idea here is it's using AMD FSR2 in order to scale that up to 4K. Now, things get a little crazier when you see the resolution that's being used for the Xbox Series S. That coming in at 768 by 436, and yeah, that's got to look wild in motion. Now, when you see it happening and things are moving, you'll actually get kind of this breakup around characters and different items, something else I noticed, and all of this is being done to try to maintain that 60 FPS target, but it looks like Unreal Engine 5.1 is already beating these systems up really well, so it's interesting to see how this will maybe improve over time as they can do updates for Immortals of Aveum. This from Ascendant Studios, this is their first game. And then also how Unreal Engine 5.1 or just Unreal Engine 5 can improve over time, because we're not even 3 years officially into this generation and we're already seeing resolution that even drop frame rates at those resolutions. So it's gonna be rough unless we see some significant improvements on the side of Unreal Engine. Although I will admit this is technically one game next to, Fortnite? But outside of Epic that's used Unreal Engine 5.1, so maybe we need some more examples and other games just to make sure this isn't just like a one-off in terms of resolution and performance. Also, with Gamescom now in the rearview mirror, we have Tokyo Game Show to look forward to, and it appears that SEGA and Atlus are preparing their own presentation. This is posted up over on the Tokyo Game Show website, where they say, tune in to the special Tokyo Game Show broadcast September 21st to learn all about the newest titles from SEGA and Atlus. You'll have to plug that into your time zone converter to see what that'll be for you. A lot of times during Tokyo Game Show, the events for me would take place overnight, so a lot of times I'd wake up in the morning and see what happened for the most part throughout that night. But in this case, with SEGA and Atlus, of course, people immediately go, oh, Persona 6. I don't know if they really even need Persona 6 right now. They kind of have a nice little schedule going with what they got. Persona 5 Tactica, that's coming up. Then to start next year, they have Persona 3 Reloaded. Then they also have, they have Metaphor coming up as well. So they have quite a bit going on. I mean, they could just say, hey, Persona 6 is coming at some point, or maybe they show up, give us updates on the different games they've already announced, and then say, oh yeah, we also have Shin Megami Tensei 5, that'll be heading to PC and PlayStation next year. So I'm not expecting a Persona 6 announcement, but it might be a nice surprise, so keep an eye out. Oh, and we had discussed this previously with Robocop, that it appeared it was getting delayed, and it's now official. There is a new trailer, you can see that here, and this is from Natcon, who says that reinforcements arrive on November 2nd, that of course being for Robocop Rogue City, which I am interested in. I'm not really sure what to make of the game's quality exactly, because some of the previews have mentioned that it's really good, at least in terms of like being Robocop, but then also parts of that are kind of annoying as well. Even with the footsteps, you get that kind of sound over and over and over again, and apparently that was getting annoying just in like the smaller play sessions. So I'm going to look into this one. Also, keep in mind they did seemingly drop Switch support silently, like the logo just stopped appearing, and it's currently set up just for Xbox and PlayStation, I believe PS5 and Xbox Series. But we have the official release date, that coming November 2nd, no longer expected in September. And guys, with some of the quick news news out of the way. Let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this weird stuff happening with Nintendo Online, as it was trending all over the place. And there was a lot of discussion around Nintendo's next generation concept being, once again, for VR. This has come up multiple times, obviously, because we had the PSVR 2 coming up. There was a lot of stuff going on with Meta and their Quest line, but that was just me. VR seems to have cooled off even more than it kind of already was. VR hasn't exactly exploded into the mainstream at this time, and it seems like it's gotten even quieter since then. So I'm not really sure why Nintendo would necessarily push into VR being its main system concept, since we haven't really seen the concept of VR show that it can tap into the mainstream and give them a reason to go out and spend a bunch of money for that experience. Nonetheless, this tweet popped up that originated from what I could find 4chan, with a bunch of images around. Well, you can see the logo here, the Nintendo Focus. Yes, it's on someone's TV for some reason with the AMD logo, but they say that it's a logo for Nintendo Focus, and Nintendo will come after them. If they keep sharing this stuff, maybe that could happen, I guess. They say that there is also a co-op 3D platformer titled Relno that will launch alongside the system. So I saw this and immediately got a bit of a chuckle out of it, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was starting on YouTube, it was like on the path to the Switch. It was in 2016, and there was another rumor that I do remember, and it was, believe it or not, the Nintendo Focus. In fact, I went back and grabbed one of the articles that went over this rumor. In fact, we can take a look at it right here. This was on iTech Post. And by the way, there were some bigger publications than you'd expect that picked up that Jonathan Bark tweet about the Nintendo Focus. And I guess they did it without even just looking up something like this. This says, according to 4chan, the new console from Nintendo will arrive on the market next year, March 10th, 2017, which I'll give them credit. They were off only by about a week, right? That's close. More so, the publication claims that instead of Nintendo NX, it will be called the Nintendo Focus. Now, they do kind of go off the rails a bit because they mention Super Smash Bros. Melee, F-Zero Squared, I guess, Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver. Those are all games that'll be on this system, along with Super Mario Focus, Animal Crossing Election Year. Hey, Pikmin 4 was right. That's right there. So, yeah, it's I wouldn't put much stock in the Nintendo Focus. Surprise, surprise. I know. But also beyond that, they had a poorly put together dashboard that showed Street Fighter 6 on the next Nintendo system. But yeah, for the most part, this is, as you figure, a fake leak, and I wouldn't pay much attention to it. I just thought it was funny that the rumor mill really is cyclical. I mean, it's kind of going green because it's recycling these logos and names, as, again, we saw Nintendo Focus leading up to the Switch launch when it was known as the Nintendo NX, and we're seeing it again leading up to, well, whatever Nintendo calls their next system. There is one other thing that came up that people are starting to discuss now, obviously, since we're going into September, the idea of a Nintendo Direct. Yes, there's probably going to be a Nintendo Direct in the next 2 to 3 weeks. However, on Zippo's page here, they did an update, and they say that there could be a Nintendo Direct this week, actually. They say it's looking more and more likely that this Direct is going to air this coming week, noting that it's a bit earlier than usual, which, yeah, according to them, if it was Thursday evening, that'd be the September 1st in Japan, so I guess it would still be in September. Just thought I'd point that out, since Zippo does get quoted quite a bit. Well, here they are saying that a Direct could be set up for this week, so I guess we'll find out over the next 4 or 5 days if they're right. Next up, let's talk about Starfield and some leaks that really got out of control. Now, we had discussed that 45 minutes or so of footage of Starfield, specifically like the beginning of the game when you're first starting out, making your character and just setting out on your adventure, was making the rounds online, and it was done through way of someone just using, I guess, a cell phone to record the screen as they were booting it up and trying it. Well, then the person decided to go off and apparently sell a bunch of copies on Mercari, and you can see how it turned out here. This posted up over on Kotaku, where they say Starfield leaker booked on felony charge after allegedly trying to sell stolen copies. And they also did a pretty good job over on Kotaku breaking it down, like kind of line by line, chronicling the entire journey of the person who did all of this. And apparently, according to the sheriff office's website, lists a felony charge for $2,500 to $10,000 worth of stolen property and a misdemeanor charge for $1,000 or less of stolen property and a misdemeanor charge for possession of marijuana. However, they go through just looking at the Mercari listings, a ton of copies of Starfield, whether it's the regular editions or Constellation editions. There's like a special edition, like premium edition one thrown in there as well. And then the person decided to go on camera and do a very quick review of Starfield, even apologizing to, I guess, Todd Howard. And I feel like it's pretty obvious that if you're doing all this, maybe don't record yourself doing it, basically. That's the best advice I can give there, I guess. But things started to spiral a bit out of control as more footage, aside from this whole thing, started to get out online that seemed to showcase a person running in one direction on a planet. Now, I can't show you the footage because it's probably going to get ripped down at some point, but it's pretty easy to find. And basically, people were able to speed up this run just throughout basically a bunch of like hills and small mountains and stuff were out there. And eventually they get to the edge of what appeared to be a boundary. So what seems to happen is you pick different areas on a planet to land, and there's essentially a sectioned off area that you explore. And now the area does appear to be very large because they did have to speed up when they were running through it. Apparently it's like 45 minutes of walking if you want to get to the edge. So there's a good chance most people won't get to the edge of their boundary before they decide to head back, maybe with resources or other things they found. And to go a bit further, sort of explaining this, we can see Tom Henderson saying the easiest way to view it is like the planet is divided to 500 tiles, not the actual number. You land in one tile, explore, etc., and then jump back into your ship to select another tile to explore. If you really wanted to, you can just select the tile next to the one you just explored and continue doing this around the whole planet. Apparently, you get to a point where it'll even start overriding over other tiles that you've done before. So it's not a situation where you land on the planet and then you can run all the way around the entire planet. There are boundaries, and that could be for a number of reasons, basically more controlled environments and areas that you set down in. And this was obviously a point of contention because you see something like No Man's Sky where you can legitimately land and just walk all around the planet, but it appears that Bethesda has done it a bit differently. And some were saying that the full story isn't out there around this thing, so I feel like I have to experience it myself before I can give a definitive, okay, this is good or bad. The other part, though, that I guess would be good is a lot of people who are playing it right now that just decide to apparently talk about it ahead of time, which a lot of people were trying to explain the landing situation with these tiles without breaking embargo, and you could tell they really want to type out and say a bunch of things to explain it, but they can't. But one part is apparently this is one of the most bug-free games that Bethesda, on this scale, with kind of their large open-world RPGs, have ever released. So that could go down to more time to polish it, as of course it infamously got delayed quite a bit. So in that case, it seems like we aren't even going to get a better product for it. But we're going to see reviews go up August 31st, and I'll be checking out as soon as it goes into early access at the end of this week, and we'll probably give some early impressions on a podcast Saturday. Next up, let's talk about Armored Core 6. Now, Armored Core has never been an incredibly successful game when it came to sales, and you could even say reviews. It struggled basically across the board, but I will give them credit. FromSoft has kept this franchise alive, even though it kind of went in the tank for a good part of a decade. It is back, and it is back in force. The game is really good. I've played about 5 hours of it now, and I will admit it is a harder Armored Core game, but it's also a more rewarding one, and I think really FromSoft has spent some time and has learned quite a bit from their Souls game, sure, but when it comes to just game quality and creativity with it, I think it's really paid off for them, and in fact, that's being reflected not only in the review scores they already looked at, but also when it comes to sales. Some early indications we can see here over on SteamDB. With the all-time peak concurrent player counts, these are players that are playing all at once, all at the same time, 156,171 just on PC. That is incredibly impressive, again, for Armored Core, which is a series that I don't think has ever broken even 500,000 copies sold of any one game. I don't think it's ever even hit, I don't think it's ever hit 1 million. So this is clearly going to be far and away the best selling Armored Core game, the best performing Armored Core game when it comes to review scores. And I know I've seen people say it's because FromSoft has just kind of built up that notoriety. And I mean, yeah, they have. People definitely trust FromSoft to provide a complete experience after what they've seen with things like Elden Ring being the biggest example recently. But you can even look at something like Sekiro, which actually the person who directed that is directing Armored Core. So there are a lot of parallels there, but really Armored Core, it's just a really good mech game. I don't know, it's just fun. So while there is difficulty spikes at times, there is still a lot you can do to figure out strategies and builds to get around these issues you run into for these different fights. So if you have Armored Core 6 right now and you're struggling, honestly, go online and check out some of the build guides that people have and tips, and you'd be shocked at how much better you can be in one of these larger battles by just changing up some parts on your core. So just a heads up there. But yeah, Armored Core 6, awesome game. Completely recommend it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a rumor that started to make the rounds at the end of last week. And it comes from a fairly reliable source with the snitch. And we can see this tweet that was posted up where they say Project God of War Ragnarok DLC is on the way. Here we go. So if you've played through God of War Ragnarok, you know at the end that yes, there could be more story or more events that can unfold and would play perfectly fine into downloadable content if indeed Sony Santa Monica wanted to go that route. But I did ask around a bit just to see, because it's God of War Ragnarok DLC. That'd be interesting, which I guess they've done. Well, Sony with Guerrilla did Burning Shores, of course, to play off of Horizon Forbidden West. That was a very fun DLC, by the way. It skipped the PS4, went right to the PS5, but still, it was fun. And in this case, yes, they could because the characters and events and everything that follows, but from what I was gathering, the snitch is onto something here, but it's not as cut and dry necessarily as downloadable content that you just buy because you already have God of War Ragnarok. It could be maybe a spin-off of some kind or just extra content that isn't necessarily like just attached at the hip for God of War Ragnarok. So just something to keep in mind there. I'm not 100% sure if this is something that Sony's going to show up in maybe in an experience or a state of play in a month or two and say, oh yeah, there's more God of War Ragnarok to be playing here soon. But it also wouldn't shock me just because the door's been left open for it. And I mean, it sold really well on the PS5 and the PS4, so why wouldn't they continue to capitalize on that by selling more content for it? But I guess we'll see here soon, because Sony does need to start announcing some stuff after Spider-Man 2 comes out, because I'm not really sure what else they have set up for 2024. Maybe more God of War, we'll see. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, will Starfield score a 90 average or above on Metacritic? Ooh, okay, 57% say no, 43% say yes. So my Metacritic prediction is a 91, so I would be in the yes category for this. And I feel like there's going to be reviews that take a while to get done, kind of like with Baldur's Gate 3, right? Where reviews, initially there was like, 8 reviews or something? And then we saw it get to the point where there were like 60 something. But that took a while. Starfield is a game that Pete Hines has mentioned, 150 hours, and he's not even close to being done. He still has a lot going on. So it's tough when you have one of those games come around and it takes forever to even attempt to put together words for a review that does justice to the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes over, especially with planets being barren at times and maybe it being so open-ended that people almost feel like there's too much going on. But interesting stuff, and it's going to be a fun day on August 31st when we get that Metacritic score, but I'm holding firm that it will be above a 90, and I got it currently locked in at a 91. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Byron, who says, I remember playing Excitebike 64 on one of those kiosks at Walmart when I was a kid. Does anyone else remember those, or am I just old? No, the N64 kiosk was an event. Like when I would go to, I think, Best Buy, they had those large CRT TVs, and it had to have been like 9 of them, because it was rows of 3, I think, big 32-inch ones, and they hung them from the ceiling so it made one big TV. So you'd walk in and you would see Mario's big head at the top there for Mario 64, and it was this big show, and it was awesome because when you went there to play it, what you were doing on that N64 kiosk would show up on those big CRTs. So it was a cool thing to have that there, and yeah, people would get a kick out of being able to play it. And yeah, with the GameCube, although that was more like McDonald's kiosks, if people remember that. I do think kiosks have kind of fallen out of favor, though. It doesn't get the attention that it once did back in the day. Although, again, we're much more plugged in now. We didn't have, with N64, YouTube, where you go just watch a game being played. When you went there and you didn't have an N64, that was like your one shot for the month just to see it in action in front of you. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the very believable Nintendo Focus that we've seen now come around twice, once for the Nintendo NX, and I guess again for whatever a Nintendo system is. And then a Nintendo Direct, do you think it could happen this week? Then also, what about Starfield? What are your hype levels right now? Are you have thoughts about how you're gonna approach this game when you first start it up? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.